What's going on, guys? This is VinylicPuma, and today I wanted to go over 7 reasons why Fallout 3 in New Vegas should be remade and or remastered. Now, this whole video was partially inspired by something that Todd Howard said at E3 during an exclusive interview with Geoff Keighly, which can best be transcribed as follows. Alright, now it's a big anniversary for Fallout this year as well, so Fallout 3 anniversary. Are you guys celebrating it in any way? To which Todd Howard replies with, the Fallout anniversary, like a remaster, is that what you're talking about? Well, we aren't right now, but you can play Fallout 3 on Xbox One. It plays in 4K, it's amazing, so it's still there and you can still experience it. Now, obviously, based on what Todd is saying here, things don't look too good for the possibility of not only a Fallout 3 remaster, let alone a remaster of another Fallout game like New Vegas. So, if you had hopes that Bethesda was ever going to remake or even remaster New Vegas, I imagine this news would be pretty disappointing. Not to mention that while I could play Fallout 3 on my Xbox One in 4K, I could play it at 4K 60 FPS on my PC, and despite that, I'd still like to see a remaster/remake that upgrades the graphics, improves some of the game's stability, and also improves the game's combat, sort of like we've seen with Fallout 4. So today, I wanted to talk about why Bethesda should reconsider this stance and actually remake/remaster Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. And to start, let's talk about the most obvious reason based on Todd Howard's quote, and that's the PS4. While what Todd Howard says is true in that you can play Fallout 3 through backwards compatibility on Xbox One X and get superior visual fidelity, not everyone owns an Xbox One X, let alone an Xbox One. In fact, according to VG charts, the Xbox One comprises 27.8% of the total console market, while the PS4 comprises an insane 59.1%, basically making the PS4 to Xbox One sales 2-to-1. Also, if you take a look at Fallout 4 sales, according to VG charts and as of March 24th, 2018, Fallout 4 has sold 8.16 million units on the PS4, while selling roughly 4.85 million units on the Xbox One. This isn't a 2-to-1 sales ratio like we've seen previously, but the PS4 version of Fallout 4 has sold about 70% more copies. And while it hasn't even come out yet, if the current trends remain consistent, it's safe to say that the PS4 version of Fallout 76 will outsell the Xbox One version. Now, I have to be clear that I'm not trying to diss the Xbox One here. It's just that the point I'm trying to make is that it just seems crazy to me that Bethesda would ignore such a large part of the console market that might like to play Fallout 3 or New Vegas on their PS4. And while I suppose you could blame Sony for designing the PS3 in a stupid way, or you could also blame Sony for making it so you have to stream both Fallout 3 and New Vegas through PlayStation Now, again, it just seems silly to say that we aren't working on a remaster/remake of Fallout 3 because you can currently play the original Fallout 3 on an Xbox One X. So ultimately, why not make Fallout 3 in New Vegas available to PS4 owners and provide a graphical update and slight gameplay overhaul to all console players in the form of a remake/remaster? And while we're on the subject of specific platforms, another reason that Fallout 3 in particular should get remastered/remade is because the PC version is dated and runs poorly on modern versions of Windows. Now, when Fallout 3 originally came out, it was designed to run on Windows Vista, which was the current version of Windows at the time. Now, while Bethesda did go back and remove the Games for Windows Live functionality from the PC version of Fallout 3, they never went back and properly optimized the game for later versions of Windows, making it fairly unstable and susceptible to frequent crashes. Especially on Windows 10, where the game just seems to have poor compatibility with Microsoft's latest operating system. Interestingly, and I suppose somewhat ironically, these problems didn't occur nearly as often with New Vegas, despite the fact that New Vegas was very buggy at launch. However, I suppose this can be attributed to the fact that New Vegas was made with Windows 7 in mind, which is possibly the best version of Windows currently on the market. But I digress. A remaster/remake of Fallout 3 would be great for PC gamers because they could not only get a more modern version of the game, but they could also get a version that's just a lot more stable and won't constantly crash on more modern versions of Windows. And then there's Fallout 76. With the revelation at E3 2018 that Fallout 76 is an always-online softcore survival RPG, there's a possibility that many players that traditionally prefer these single-player Fallout games are going to skip Fallout 76. Sort of like how many players that loved Skyrim were incredibly excited for another Elder Scrolls game, but ultimately decided to skip out on the Elder Scrolls Online, thanks in large part to the fact that ESO is far different from Bethesda's traditional RPGs. Releasing remasters and/or remakes of both Fallout 3 and New Vegas could help maintain some interest in the Fallout franchise for players that aren't necessarily interested in Fallout 76 and prefer the more traditional single-player RPG type gameplay that Bethesda Game Studios is known for. Something else to consider is the fact that Fallout 5 is going to come out after not just Fallout 76, but also the Elder Scrolls 6 and Starfield. Assuming best case scenario that Starfield is released in 2019 to 2020 and the Elder Scrolls 6 is released in 2022 to 2023, I think we can definitely say that the release of Fallout 5 is definitely a ways away. And while I suppose both Starfield and the Elder Scrolls 6 could be released sooner, either way you slice it, it seems to me that Fallout 5 could potentially be 5 or more years away from actually releasing. So again, sort of like I was mentioning with Fallout 76, remastering or remaking Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas could allow players to fulfill their itch for a true Fallout RPG while we're waiting for Fallout 5. And given that the wait is likely going to be pretty long, going back and remastering and/or remaking both Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas will help maintain interest in the Fallout franchise, depending on how Fallout 76 turns out. Another reason why remastering/remaking Fallout 3 and New Vegas would be a great idea is because there's measurable demand for it. After all, before the Capital Wasteland project was cancelled due to legal advice, there were a lot of people that were really excited to see it happen. The same goes for the ongoing Fallout New Vegas conversion mod for Fallout 4, as many would like to see Fallout 3 and New Vegas get a true graphical/visual facelift to be more on par with Fallout 4, or potentially even exceed what was seen in Fallout 4. It always seemed pretty silly to me that Bethesda never truly capitalized on either of those mods, especially since they seemed to be really interested in appealing to some players' nostalgia by including classic weapons and armor in Fallout 4's Creation Club. Why not approach either of the mod teams in question and try to work with them to get a commercial product made that could be released on all platforms? After all, it seemed to work pretty well for Sega with Sonic Mania, and while a Fallout 3 and New Vegas project would be more expensive to make, I think it's cancelled out by the fact that Fallout in general is a much more popular series than the Sonic series is. As far as I see it, if there are people that are attempting to make mods that remake/remaster Fallout 3 as well as Fallout New Vegas, that seems like it should be a good indication that remaking either game is a pretty good idea and would likely be very successful. There's also the fact that while both Fallout 3 and New Vegas are good games, they're slowly starting to show their age. After all, you have to remember that both games were released on Xbox 360 and PS3, where we could only render games at 720p at best. Not to mention that Fallout 3 and New Vegas have fairly clunky combat systems when compared to Fallout 4, let alone other modern FPS-type games. Having the ability to still play the games as they were originally designed, however, with some quality-of-life updates like Fallout 4's combat system and overall better visuals, would also be great for people that have only played Fallout 4. Plus, other developers have had a lot of success with remaking their games, as both the Resident Evil remake for the GameCube and even the remake of Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare were praised for their improved visual fidelity and overall improved production quality. Ultimately, both Fallout 3 and New Vegas are good games, and would be greatly helped if they were more modernized with both some visual improvements and with an improved combat system. Now, this final thing I want to talk about has to do with the resources and difficulty of actually making a remaster or remake of Fallout 3 and/or Fallout New Vegas. unlike developing a new game where you have to plan out the concept, design art, and then turn all of that into a great game, a lot of the work has already been done for you when remaking/remastering a game. After all, a lot of the story progression, mechanics, art, sound effects, and music have already been made, and all wouldn't necessarily need to be redone. Sure, in the case of Fallout 3 or New Vegas, Bethesda would need to improve some of the art assets and maybe redo some of the voice acting, but by and large, there's already a clear template of what the game is supposed to be, and a lot of the original assets could simply be repurposed and potentially reused. There's also the fact that Bethesda Game Studios proper wouldn't necessarily have to work on this project in-house, and could outsource it either to a group of modders that they've contracted like I mentioned earlier, or an entirely different studio that's known for producing quality remakes. After all, studios like Bluepoint Games have done great work for Sony in remaking games like Shadow of the Colossus and remastering Uncharted, and I'm sure there are other studios aside from Bluepoint that also specialize in doing this. My thinking is, it would actually be cheaper to make a conversion of Fallout 3 and New Vegas into Fallout 4 rather than it would be to make a new game. Meaning if there was concern whether this would be profitable somehow, I would say there's a good chance it would be profitable because the project would be far less expensive to make than Fallout 4 was. At the end of the day, guys, I hope Bethesda at least considers remaking/remastering Fallout 3 as well as New Vegas. Whether they will do it in Fallout 4's engine or they end up doing it in Bethesda's next game engine, both games, and especially New Vegas, are revered by the gaming community as a whole, and I think both releases could be very popular. But I guess we're just going to have to wait and see and hope this eventually happens. Otherwise, guys, I think that's going to wrap up this particular video. If you liked this video, feel free to leave a like, click the bell so you can be notified when I upload more videos, and as always, thank you all so much for supporting the channel, take care, and I'll see y'all in the next one.